that's just not a very attractive street. It's way too wide. It's got astounding amounts of parking. And I asked Mike, who parks in those spaces? Because I was looking around at the stores and thinking, where, I don't see who's going to be in there. And he was saying a lot of it is high school students and a lot of it is commuters. And, I am told that this building and the project connected with it was very controversial and, architecturally, whatever. But, honestly, I think that this is better suited to Miller Avenue and Mill Valley than this is, which is the other side of the street. I mean, it's just so interesting that a place like Miller Avenue, and Mill Valley doesn't have me. That's part of the things. It's like a place like Miller Avenue, which I'm informed has been the subject of debate after debate after debate. The issue isn't that the streetscape isn't done well or that the planting isn't good or this or that. It's that it's scaled to such an extent that it doesn't, it might serve as a traffic thoroughfare, but it's not an attractive entrance to Mill Valley. It's not a scenic anything. It's basically, it's a retail strip, like retail strips in cities all over the Bay Area, California, so on and so forth. And you can imagine something like that where it's just, who knows, narrative or whatever issues, but you can imagine if that had development that was 2 or 3 stories along the way. Again, you can imagine the fight, but once it was there or 10 years later, it wouldn't be a fight because it wouldn't even really be noticed that much. It would just be kind of like what was always there. And and now we're going to look at this as long as we look at the deer. But I mean, it's interesting because this was I just had a little point and shoot camera for this. I just wanted to kind of annotate things. This isn't like a big lecture slideshow. But what struck me is how much multi-unit housing there is in the center of town, on Miller Avenue, on Throckmorton, things like that. I mean, it's not San Francisco scale. It's not certainly Berkeley scale. I mean, you just see kind of all these equivalent of 3-story apartment buildings that, judging by the look, are all kind of late 50s to early mid-70s. Probably before there was a lot of attention to the form and the character and the identity of the city. And so you get, like on Miller, coming out of the downtown toward the freeway, there are a lot of apartments there. Throckmorton heading out this direction, I was surprised kind of looking in and seeing things. Some of the streets up above the village there. And it's not that they're huge, or disproportionate or anything. It's more that they're accepted, they're settled. It used to be that this was a city that built for lots of different classes, and that's just kind of what happened. And it happened by chance, and it actually created a more diverse, interesting community because you created this housing close in. And the fact is now you don't even see most of it. Because I'm talking about the Throckmorton. I don't know if there is some, I don't know if they're condos or apartments just on the edge of the commercial area. I don't know if the trees grew up around them, if they were the original landscaping, or if the pieces were nestled in, but it's like you kind of look in and then start to realize there are things in there, so on and so forth. Or on Miller, I think the Innsbruck was the one that kind of stuck out the most. It seemed like there were about half a dozen of them. Most of them, the trees cover them. They're just there. And I think that is kind of part of the challenge. What I would love to see, speaking as the urban design critic for the San Francisco Chronicle, what I would love to see happen in Mill Valley is somehow a public and both public bodies and developers, business communities, whatever, who kind of thought about how do we come up with a comfortable middle scale of density. You know, not bungalow courts. Your geographic layout isn't bungalow courts, but that type of thing where you look at things and they're actually fairly dense if you were to do the tabulation, but all you see are these nice little places to live. And you know, like I noticed at Throckmorton and Old Mill, there's like a little set of townhouse. Looks pretty new, judging by the shingles.
Brand new.
Okay, brand new. I mean, that's a pretty comfortable scale. I have no idea how big the units are, how well they've done, if they're rental, for sale, whatever. But I mean, something like that, you know, I would love it if a city like this could kind of come up with a form of housing so that when we're back on the village or things along the way that, you know, they're just like nice 10 to 1,500 square foot units, cottage style, multi-family style, you know, detached single family homes, but just things that kind of show, okay, this is a way to bring in some density to the city, a way to bring in different price levels, so on and so forth, and yet do so in a way that settles in pretty comfortably. Because I think that obviously you folks are wrestling with all the fights here and in Marin and Plan Bay area and so on and so forth. But kind of every community fights with this in different ways. Everyone's wondering about scale. Everyone's wondering about, you know, what type of people should we build for, so on and so forth. And to the extent that communities outside of San Francisco can start to find ways to make development happen, but make development happen in a way that when it's done, people say, you know, that looks pretty good, it feels pretty good, so on and so forth. That's the kind of model that can kind of extend. And like I said, I want to keep this short because I wanted to have questions and all, but I really do think that it is difficult to get beyond the acrimony. I mean, I certainly, I don't know the extent to which, I just would like to think each one of you bounds out in the morning and gets the Chronicle off the front stoop. If you read it on SF8, you go into the comments, and you learn things about in the comments you never knew before. I mean, the sad thing is that the way the public debate takes shape in planning commission hearings and city council hearings, in letters to the editor, in comments on web pages, tends to not really be reflective of the opinion of all the people that are just living their lives. Like I'm looking at folks here tonight, I would guess that there are plenty of people in Mill Valley who care as much as you do about the future of the city, but they've got the kids who they're kind of hitting them over the head to do the homework. Or they're just getting in from San Francisco after having worked an hour late and being stuck in the traffic. You know, there are so many people that care about a place, and so much of the debate tends to only pull out the most strident voices. You know, so you get kind of the advocates on one side saying, climate change is coming, sea level's coming, so on and so forth. Mill Valley, it's up to you to save the world. And then the other side says, if one multi-unit family building is built in Mill Valley, our character is lost irrevocably. We're no longer the fourth best small town in America. You know, so I would just encourage you to kind of take the advantage to think about, okay, we got a great city here. We have a city where, yes, indeed, deer gamble around. And so how do we just kind of accept the fact that we're also a vibrant city in the middle of a vibrant county and a vibrant region, and find ways just to amp that up a little bit without changing what we are in a way that the average person on the street would see it. So that's kind of where I wanted to, again, like I said, I don't feel I can tell you what to do. I don't feel, you know, certainly not, well, here's what they do in San Francisco, or here's what they do in Walnut Creek, but just you know, a place like this is a very special place. And it's also a place that faces all sorts of real life problems and the problems of emotion. Because so much of, and this goes back to what I talked about at the beginning, but so much of what we all wrestle with, and again, I grew up in the Bay Area. I scribbled this point here. I can't figure out what it was. So much of, I found it. So much of the image of a place, and I want you to remember all this when, those of you who are involved in the general planning effort, when the character and image of Mill Valley are debated. So much of this is a collage in our minds. We carry our picture of our place. When I look at Walnut Creek, I still see Blue Boys. I can remember the walnut groves. But the fact is, another person, I did a piece that ran last week about changes in Walnut Creek. And I was in Danville last Friday night at an event and was talking to them. Oh my gosh, I love your Walnut Creek piece. I moved there in 1974. You wouldn't believe the changes. And I was like, well, we actually got there a decade before you, so I know them. But I mean, so much, you know, in other words, so much of what we see is everything we've experienced layered onto what we're seeing now. And when something like a general plan is being debated, especially when a general plan is being debated in the times we live in now, where nuance is not a cherished virtue of public debate, that will tend to get lost. And I just hope to the extent that, you know, you folks are involved in it and thinking about it and talking with your friends, is just to think about, first of all, there's a lot of nuance involved. It's not a one wrong step and everything's destroyed. I took some really homely pictures of homely buildings in downtown Mill Valley. And you know what? Mill Valley is still a charming place, despite that big, ugly bank building over by the Paseo. Anyway. But then, you know, the other thing is that you see everything you've experienced here since you arrived. Someone else is going to go to an open house on Saturday or Sunday, and they're going to be dazzled, they're going to make a bid on a house, and their Mill Valley is going to start this weekend. And what they carry with them is that. And the last point, to go all the way back to the library, I mean, I touched on this earlier with the trees, but one thing that struck me about this building, and both when I was here earlier today and then when I came back, this is a big building. I mean, it's, take away the trees, this is a big building by Mill Valley standards. And I have no idea if there was a debate at the time, this is too big for Mill Valley, or if the fact that it was in the mid-60s, it was before people started saying, wait a second, we can have opinions on this. These days, I don't think anyone would be driving up Throckmorton and go, this is too big.
This whole part of it was not part
Oh,
of it.
no, the whole thing. I know the annex piece, but I mean, I'm talking about what you kind of like see from the outside. You know, again, I don't think anyone would go up now and say, this library is out of scale. Yeah, the fact is it's settled in, it's covered by trees, it actually amplifies the open space. You walk into the library, and then you walk onto the terrace, that's a, you know. So I just urge you all to have fun the next few months as you get the general plan all done and finished up. So what I want to do is just stop there and I don't want to know. Uh-oh, my deer have expired. So I will ask Mike to turn this off, and I will take questions if there are any questions. And you can also ask me about the weird building in today's Chronicle, anything else you want. Yes?
I do have a question, but a couple of things that you brought up you might be interested in. We came to town in 1946.